Good morning, everybody. I'm Congressman Jim McGovern. Welcome to the Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission briefing on Haiti, options for improving human rights and security. I welcome our outstanding panel of participants, two of whom are joining us from Haiti. I have watched with great concern as the security and human rights situation in Haiti has deteriorated since our last hearing on human rights in Haiti in 2020. Over the past year, the crisis has become even worse, with the siege of the capital city, Port-au-Prince, by gangs in early 2024. The violence committed by these vicious gangs has been devastating, with the death toll exceeding 5,600 people last year. They use sexual violence and rape to terrorize the population and control access to territory or humanitarian assistance. They forcibly recruit minors. The gangs use extortion, kidnapping, and arms and drug trafficking to fill their coffers and fuel the conflict. According to the United Nations, the firepower of the gangs surpasses that of the Haitian police. We know that most of these weapons originate in the United States. The gangs are also more unified now than before. Instead of fighting each other, they are working together to fight the police and the Kenyan-led Multinational Security Support Mission, which lacks enough funding or personnel to make a meaningful improvement in security. At the same time, we hear of human rights abuses committed by security forces in Haiti. The Transitional Presidential Council, in place since last April, is charged with governing the country until democratic elections are possible. It is important for the TPC to show a commitment to addressing corruption and reducing impunity. They need to strengthen the institutions that hold accountable those who violate human rights and who enrich themselves by cooperating with the gangs. There is also a humanitarian crisis. More than 1 million Haitians are displaced from their homes, half of whom are children. 5.5 million people, half the country, are living in acute hunger. Haitians have the right to live free from hunger and fear, and they have a right to health, which has been threatened by gang attacks on hospitals and health centers. We have a responsibility to help. Conditions in Haiti right now are devastating. We are looking to learn from the benefits and shortcomings of past approaches and support initiatives that address the root causes of the violence. The people working on the front lines in Haitian communities to save lives, heal the sick, fight for justice, and shine a light on corruption have expertise to offer. So today we have representatives of civil society organizations to share their knowledge about what is working at local levels and generate ideas for increasing restorative justice, addressing impunity, and protecting vulnerable groups in Haiti. We hope today to hear ideas and policy proposals that Congress can follow up on. I believe strongly that Haiti deserves our help, and that we can and we should do more to help improve the security and the human rights situation in the country. I thank all of you for joining us today. I now turn to our moderator, Carla Rios, from the Congressional Research Service, and I thank her for her participation and for kind of steering this conversation. Carla, take it over.
Thank you. Thank you for your introductory remarks, Congressman McGovern. And good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission briefing on the human rights and security situation in Haiti. Again, my name is Carla Rios, and I am a Latin American Affairs Analyst at the Congressional Research Service, focusing on issues in the region, including Haiti. And it is my pleasure to moderate today's discussion titled Haiti, Options for Improving Human Rights and Security. We are privileged to have with us 3 distinguished human rights experts on Haiti, and together we will explore the evolving human rights and security conditions in Haiti following the assassination of President Jovenel Moïse in July of 2021, as well as the interconnected political and humanitarian crisis or challenges in the country. Haiti's already dire security and humanitarian crisis has escalated even further over the past year since a siege of the capital Port-au-Prince by criminal gangs inflicted devastating violence on the country. In 2024, at least 5,600 people were killed by gang violence, according to UN estimates, and there are now more than 1 million internally displaced persons in the country, the highest number due to criminal violence in the world. The gangs amass control over territory and illicit markets amid the deeply unpopular government of former Prime Minister Ariel Henry, who assumed office following President Moïse's assassination. Henry resigned in April of last year after the formation of a Transitional Presidential Council, or TPC, In the face of this crisis, both the Council and UN-backed solutions in the multifaceted crisis in Haiti have not met expectations. The Council has been plagued by infighting and accusations of corruption that have eroded trust in the Council among Haitians and international partners. In terms of Haiti's security situation, in October of 2022, then Prime Minister Ariel Henry requested the deployment of an international force to help the outmanned and outgunned Haitian National Police quell insecurity and facilitate humanitarian aid. 1 year later, in October of 2023, the UN Security Council adopted a resolution authorizing a non-UN multinational force. The Kenyan-led Multinational Security Support Mission, or MSS, which deployed in Haiti in June of 2024, has tried to bolster the Haitian National Police in improving security. It approximately has 1,000 personnel, but remains underfunded and understaffed and unable to meaningfully constrain gangs, which as of March of this year reportedly controlled an estimated 85% of the Haitian capital and has spread into rural, formerly peaceful zones like Mirepale. In October of 2024, a letter was sent to the Secretary General where Haiti requested that the MSS be transformed into a UN peacekeeping mission as soon as possible. The Secretary General noted in a February 2025 letter that transforming the MSS into a peacekeeping operation is not currently a feasible option. Finally, elections have not been held in Haiti since 2016, and Haiti reportedly plans to hold general elections this year in November. Today, our three panelists representing human rights and civil society groups focused on Haiti will discuss key actions that Haitians can lead to improve human rights, security, and democratic participation in the country, and ways that international efforts and the United States Congress can work and strengthen and support these efforts. Each panelist will present their remarks for 5 minutes, and we hope to have some time for questions at the end. But before I begin, I would like to briefly introduce our distinguished panelists and share their backgrounds. First, we have Valina Elise-Charlier, who is a feminist and political activist. She is a member of Nu Paptomi, a Haitian civil society organization that advocates for social justice, anti-corruption, anti-impunity, and accountable governance. NPD is among the organizations that launched the Petro-Caribe Challenge anti-corruption movement, which rallied hundreds of thousands of Haitians to call for accountability for Haiti's largest corruption scandal. A defender of human rights through her political involvement, she wants to encourage Haitians, especially young people, to get involved to do politics differently. Alongside NPD, she recently launched the project Citoyen Patomi, promoting youth participation through civic education and engagement in Haiti. Next, we have Corinne Paul, who is the Senior Policy Advisor for Civil and Political Rights at the American Jewish World Service, where she works in partnership with grassroots organizations around the world on issues related to human rights. Prior to joining AJWS, she worked to advance foreign policy priorities in the United States Senate and for a large international NGO. Corinne has also worked at a nonprofit organization within Haiti, and she currently serves as board president of Right to Be, an organization that supports women and girls in Lekai, Haiti. And finally, Isabelle Clerier is a Haitian anthropologist and transitional justice expert whose work is focused on claiming local narratives by leveraging the power and assets of communities in Haiti. From 2017 to 2019, she worked with the UN Office of High Commission for Human Rights to lead an entirely civil society-led process to design Haiti's first national strategy for confronting past crimes and impunity. In 2024, she designed a context-appropriate, multi-stakeholder national dialogue process and continuously engages with actors across all of Haiti's civil society. Isabelle is also a board member and advisor to several nonprofits and writes a column entitled Repairing Development for Proximate Press. It is quite the impressive panel that we have today, and thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today. And now I will give the floor to Valina to share her take on the situation in Haiti, followed by Corinne, and last but certainly not least, Isabelle. Thank you. Valina, you're muted.
Apologies. I was saying thank you, Corda. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. Members of the commission and participants, thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Valina Charlier. I'm a member of Nu Paptomi, a Haitian civil society organization that stands against corruption and impunity. I'm here today to speak on behalf of many Haitians whose voices have been silenced. People who are living in fear, who have lost loved ones, and who no longer have a safe place to call home. Haiti is in a state of violent disintegration. The entire city of Port-au-Prince and other regions are under the de facto control of armed gangs. These groups have shut down the airport, attacked key institutions and hospitals, and destroyed police stations. They are using tactics of terrorist groups, burning, raping, looting, and executing civilians to instill fear and displace communities. The government is entirely absent, deeply corrupt, and has shown no willingness to address the issues. There is no functioning judiciary and no rule of law. 85% of Port-au-Prince, if not more, is now controlled by gangs. This is not a security issue alone. It's a human rights catastrophe. More than 4,200 people were killed in 2024. Over 1 million people have been displaced, half of them children. These figures are not just statistics. They are mothers, fathers, children, elders. Sexual violence is being weaponized and used to punish women and girls and destroy communities. Hospitals, schools, and churches are either shut down or used as gang strongholds. The situation of chaos and terror that Haiti is currently experiencing is not happening in a vacuum. The criminal and terrorist groups are not operating in silo. There's an entire ecosystem behind them. They are armed with US-made weapons and ammunition that are trafficked to ports, the Dominican Republic border, and other places in the region. They are financed by transnational criminal networks in the region. They are sponsored by co-op Haitian elite who benefit from the instability and the illicit economy it sustains. This is not solely a Haitian issue. It's a transnational issue that requires urgent action. This violence is not just the result of local dynamics. They are fueled by a global system of corruption and decades of foreign policies that have empowered Haitian co-op elites while sidelining the voices of everyday Haitians. That's why I'm here today, to call on the international community to stand with Haiti in a meaningful and sustained way. We need a response grounded not in charity or short-term optics, but in justice and accountability, in long-term solidarity and shared responsibility. I'm presenting a set of actions that can make a real impact. 1, curbing the trafficking of firearms and ammunition into Haiti. The international community, and the US in particular, must take concrete steps. This issue should be a regional priority, as illegal arms trafficking is one of the greatest threats to the stability in our hemisphere. 2, assist Haitian judiciary in investigating and prosecuting individuals colluding with gangs and criminal networks. The Haitian judiciary is nearly non-existent, and widespread corruption makes it impossible to prosecute cases effectively. Given that this is a transnational issue, the international community has the leverage to help Haiti dismantle the gang ecosystem, targeting those responsible for the violence both within Haiti and abroad. To address this, it is crucial to establish a transitional justice body involving both Haitian and international institutions to investigate and prosecute high-level crimes like massacres, financial crimes, and drug trafficking. Strengthen the use of sanctions to target individuals colluding with gangs and committing financial crime. While Haitian civil society has welcomed the various sanctions imposed on individuals in Haiti, the impact has been limited because they have not been followed by adequate judicial processes, which are crucial for ensuring true accountability and justice. Without these processes, these individuals continue to cause harm without facing real consequences. 3, prioritizing support to the Haitian forces. It is crucial to review the current security support approach and redirect resources towards strengthening Haitian forces. So far, the focus was mainly on supporting the Kenya-led MSS, which, after nearly a year, has fallen short of its goals. Meanwhile, the Haitian police and army, though courageous, remain under-resourced in their fight against gangs. The priority should shift towards providing comprehensive support to the Haitian forces. The support can take several forms, ensuring that their capabilities are strengthened for long-term impact. 4, provide governance support for election. Organizing elections in the immediate future is not feasible, and washing elections could deepen the instability rather than resolve it. However, it is critical to assist the Haitian government and civil society in laying the groundwork for future election. I stress these recommendations because much of the needed support hinges on international cooperation. The actions that I have outlined are not about shifting the entire burden of solving Haiti's crisis onto the international community. Rather, these are concrete steps the international community can take to support Haiti's recovery alongside with Haitian actors. As I stated in the beginning of my remarks, this crisis is not only a Haitian issue, it is a regional issue with far-reaching implications. Therefore, a coordinated multilateral approach is essential to help Haiti restore order, build the infrastructure for democratic governance, and ensure a lasting stability for the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Belina, for your remarks. And before we get to Corinne, I would just like to mention for the audience that you can submit questions on the Q&A function here on Zoom, and there will be an opportunity at the end for the panelists to address some of those questions. Thank you. Floor to you, Corinne.
Good morning. Thank you to the Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission for hosting this important discussion today. And thank you also for featuring Haitians and Haitian women especially as the experts. As I'll note later in my remarks, too often this perspective is missing from decisions made on Haiti. AJWS is the leading Jewish organization working to fight poverty and defend human rights around the world. We respond to the most pressing issues of our time by supporting hundreds of local grassroots organizations because they know their communities best. My remarks today will elevate what we're learning from partners within Haiti. So Haiti is currently facing a humanitarian crisis, a security crisis, and a governance crisis. I believe the first step towards putting out these fires is to acknowledge where the US and the international community may be inadvertently adding fuel to those flames. First, on the humanitarian front, the US's abrupt aid stoppage will cost lives. While there are credible critiques of how aid was conducted in Haiti, the way it was halted risks deepening the crisis. More than 1 million people are now internally displaced, and that's almost 10% of the country. Displacement is approaching levels that were seen after the earthquake, yet international response has not been anywhere near as generous now as it was then. Millions of people are going hungry, overcrowded displacement sites are susceptible to disease, and the free movement of people and goods has stopped. And this was worsened by the ban of US airlines to all of Haiti in November and compounded with the preemptive flight ban to Port-au-Prince until at least September this year. Additionally, migration policies threaten to add to this displacement and instability. More than 276,000 people were deported from the Dominican Republic to Haiti last year. In the US, refusal to extend temporary protected status and ending humanitarian parole means hundreds of thousands more Haitians could be forced to return there in the coming months. On the security crisis, gang violence has risen to levels usually seen in active conflicts, although the weapons being used are not made in Haiti. The US can and should do more to stem the flow of illegal weapons going from our shores into the Caribbean. The Haitian National Police has been overwhelmed, and the Multinational Security Support Mission was deployed without addressing Haitian civil society's serious concerns about it. The MSS mandate never addressed root causes of Haiti's violence, and it never clearly explained how it would protect civilians. So when it did arrive, it was, and today continues to be, under-equipped and outnumbered. A more holistic strategy would have included stronger accountability against those who fund the gangs and greater support to local police forces. On the governance crisis, which is fundamentally linked to the security situation, is real concern with who makes up Haiti's leadership. So first, governance must be decoupled from criminality. For years, Haitian elites have engaged in corruption or funded armed gangs in order to protect their power. And even today, several members of the current government have been accused of corruption. However, the Haitian judicial system is not currently equipped to prosecute all these high-profile cases of government criminality or all the interpersonal crimes committed by gang members. So in the absence of a strong Haitian judiciary, it's meaningful that dozens of international sanctions have been put on Haitians involved in illegal activity, including former presidents and prime ministers. But too often, the US and the international community supported these politicians while they were in power. And these sanctions were rarely strong enough to deter others from committing similar crimes. Second, governance must include women. The 9-member Transition Council currently only includes one woman, and she doesn't have a vote. Failing to include women is a problem for effectiveness, since we know that post-conflict solutions are more sustainable when women are at the table. It's a moral failure to not include a demographic that makes up half the population and is uniquely impacted by gang violence. And it's a glaring rule of law failure. It's telling that even though Haiti's constitution says at least 30% of political seats should be held by women, this government, which had the blessing of CARICOM and the United States to set up new elections, did not follow this policy itself. So while the challenges in Haiti may be complex, there is much that the US can do to support the changes that so many Haitians have already been fighting for. That looks like pausing the deportations to Haiti, stopping the flow of weapons to gangs, strengthening the justice system, improving the Haitian police force, and no longer supporting corrupt actors in power. The protests in Haiti just a few days ago remind us that Haitians are still striving for a government and for a world that will respond to their needs with more respect. And after 200 years since earning their independence and being forced to pay an independence debt, Haitians are still fighting to be recognized and still fighting to have their voices heard. So as we look for solutions to this crisis unfolding so close to US borders, it's time we listen to them. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you so much, Kareem. Isabel, next to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla, and thank you to the Commission for having us all here. So as Haiti spirals further and further out of control, the solutions on the table are ultimately the same as always. But let's just say that we're able to suppress armed groups. They are reportedly over 5,000 to 10,000 members strong. Are we supposed to arrest, imprison, and try all of these people? With what infrastructure? What judges? What prisons? To restore stability and democracy in Haiti, I believe there are two key elements. First, resourcing Haitian civil society to design, implement, and monitor transitional and restorative justice mechanisms. And second, bolstering public digital infrastructure. Let's look at the first. I was born a year after a 30-year dictatorship. I grew up under a military regime, and I spent my adolescence during the rise of kidnappings in the early 2000s. I have observed how people talk about Haiti's problems my entire life. I have watched corruption go from a disguised practice that is whispered in private conversations or accomplished in empty parking lots to sitting in a public servant's office and being explained the terms of a bribe out loud over coffee. I have seen Haiti go through different iterations of the line being drawn where one side is safe and the other is not. And I watched that line disappear so that even those who fostered the conditions for violence and abuse became targets of the system. I have seen every single social class point fingers at each other or at this and that president or at the international community. But what I have never seen until now is people's willingness to reflect on the enabling conditions for what we are living today, and their insistence that we start having difficult conversations about what really brought us here. Without waiting for the elusive right time, we can start changing the course of this crisis today. With simple resources, we can start implementing different campaigns to prepare communities for dialogue and for peace processes. We can start collecting stories for truth initiatives. We can facilitate powerful dialogues between previously at odds actors like the police and communities, or between the elites and people from popular neighborhoods. These are all things that we can start today, and indeed, several people have already begun. Haitian civil society needs the time and resources to design and implement transitional and restorative justice mechanisms, such as community courts like the Gacaca courts of Rwanda for certain types of crime. Commemorative initiatives throughout impacted communities can be done, and other restorative models that can sustain peace in the long term. There is a very real opportunity in this moment for Haitians to lead their own recovery. I believe that the guarantee of non-repetition lies in reconciliation and restorative models, as well as locally led development initiatives that create the conditions for people to thrive and to remain good citizens. It is not nearly as complicated as it sounds and is in fact a much more time and cost-efficient approach that is more likely to yield scalable, sustainable, and transformative results. Haitians are in various states of desperation between its multitudes of security, governance, economic, and climate crises, but I assure you, we are not incapable, nor are we unaware of how to improve the conditions of life for all of our communities. We just need our international partners to reshape how they support us. Secondly, in order to mitigate the risks associated with mismanagement of international funds within the public sector, as well as mitigate opportunities for corruption, the international community should bolster Haiti's digital infrastructure for public accounting, identification, record keeping, voting, and more. For instance, do you know that often during elections, many counts get thrown out because the tabulators made a spelling mistake in their handwritten reports? Did you also know that birth certificates and forms for ID cards are still handwritten? When I had to get my new national ID, the same one that would allow me to vote, the man filling out the requisite form did not know how to read the cursive writing on my birth certificate and misidentified a cursive capital I for a Y and almost changed my name on an official ID. Do you know how many people get multiple ID cards despite the system allegedly using biometrics? This allows them to buy multiple SIM cards, for instance, associated with a multitude of crimes. Sometimes it allows for one person to claim benefits or take out loans under different identities. Within the state's own record keeping of employees, mostly done by hand, there are countless ghost employees, people who are on payroll but don't even work for the state. Some of them are not even in the country. It is not normal that public entities can disburse money in cash to projects they are supposedly subsidizing, but I've seen it countless times. It is not normal that a ministry employee can say without blinking that any money that leaves the ministry is taxed, meaning that someone or a group of someone's in the office get a cut. It is not normal that all of this can happen at the rate that it is happening and very little evidence exists. At this time in Haiti, there is a decree for the creation of specialized courts to address mass crimes and financial crimes. Digital infrastructure is not only timely, it is in line with already proposed G7 goals. The international community is weary of solving Haiti's problems because you've defined them according to your standards and given us very little say in the matter. Now is the time to recognize that the solutions of old are not working and indeed have caused a lot of harm. Haiti does not have the capacity to fund these solutions, but we do have the capacity to design and implement them. So I implore this body to consider how much more efficient it would be to help us build the infrastructure that would adequately monitor resource allocation and support our civil society in fostering the conditions for peace and sustainability to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our panelists and each of your remarks, especially on the increasingly dire situation in Haiti and the effects transnationally, particularly the role of international partners and Haitians both individually and together. Some of you have touched on this already, especially in the way that international partners should reshape the way that they interact with Haiti. But let's go a little deeper, and perhaps we can start in reverse order on what are the implications for the Haitian people with the reported cuts of U.S. humanitarian assistance to Haiti. And in the same realm, how could the United States work with Haitian civil society to promote stability and curb gang violence, particularly the role for U.S. organizations, and if you believe they could support or how they could support potential efforts of transnational justice and stabilization in Haiti?
Let me jump in.
Sure.
The first thing that I'm going to say on this topic is that, believe it or not, the level of corruption that we have seen in Haiti in international organizations or humanitarian aid, or the way that generally the US agencies or the international community at large helping in Haiti, the level of corruption that we have seen, a lot of the times it makes much more harm than it helps. So I believe there is a need to go back to square one and design programs and design plans, not only listening to Haitians and what Haitians really need, but going deep into the communities and avoiding the easy narrative of concentrating everything in Port-au-Prince and making sure that when we go into the community, we listen and the help, the assistance is designed based on what the communities needs. There needs to be strong anti-corruption measures that not only question the stakeholders, but also questions the community. So there's a need for transnational help. There's a need for transnational cooperation, but there's also much more important, a need for respect of Haitian dignity. Too often in the ground, what we are seeing is people coming with made up solution, or this has worked in such other country and then it's going to work in Haiti as well. So there is that need to respect Haitians, listen to Haitian society, listen to Haitian on the ground, listen to Haitian local NGOs that are really making the work getting done, but also making sure that people are held accountable for what they are doing. So it's too easy to come into Haiti, spend billions of dollars, and then many years later have nothing to show for it. And yet you're not seeing people being brought in front of justice. You're not seeing people being prosecuted. Nobody goes into prison. It makes Haiti become a mafia land. You know, we're all going to say things as they are. Haiti is a mafia land, and it is today the situation of chaos is perfect for people to continue with that mafia state of mind.
I can jump in here. I think, yeah, and I think, you know, what Viliana is saying is definitely pertinent, but I think also there needs to be a sort of, like I said, reshaping of how we are supported, right? And I think one of the main things is, first of all, we have to sort of move out of this concept of deficiency, that Haiti is just missing all of these things, right? If we start from a conversation around what assets we actually have, and I mean literally, like, what are the communities actually doing? What are they capable of? What kinds of conversations are they having amongst themselves? You know, everything from, you know, in a rural community, everything from honestly tools. These are all assets. We have to map what people actually have so they can start from what they have. Because going in with a needs assessment, again, it comes in with a framework of a standard that doesn't necessarily apply to how we work. And how we live and how communities live in different parts of the country. So we have to understand what people actually have, what they're actually capable of. And so when I was doing this work with OHCHR and we did the national strategy, it's literally based on what organizations, community organizations, not just human rights organizations, because again, the UN when they told me engage with civil society, they gave me a list of organizations. They were all human rights organizations. And I was like, okay, there's other people in civil society. I went after, you know, peasant associations, women's associations, youth associations, private sector. So it had to be a multi-stakeholder conversation. So we really have a all-encompassing concept of what we're dealing with. And the strategy itself literally proposes things based on what organizations are capable of right now, because the idea was to not have to send them back to write another document, to write another proposal and wait for funds and and all of these things, always waiting for something. It would allow them to start right now. And it was literally things like having your flags at half-mast for a commemorative date. It was, you know, doing awareness in schools because they were doing that anyway. And it was literally just facilitating conversations in their communities. And that by itself had a huge impact. And so I think people need to really hear how we operate, how we work. And then maybe we can have a different conversation about how we report out as well. Those are important conversations as well. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think Valina and Isabel both explained kind of the challenges really perfectly, that, you know, oftentimes there's an issue with the way that the international community is interacting with Haiti and the way that aid is done. You know, they say that if a development project is done well, it should be working itself out of a job. And that hasn't been how organizations have operated in Haiti for a long time. You know, that being said, I know that the direct impacts on the U.S. aid cuts are still remains to be seen. There are a number of programs that are closing, a number of organizations who were relying on that support that are no longer able to do their work. And it's particularly concerning when, again, we're talking about the huge levels of hunger and displacement. So that means that immediate needs are not being met, even at the same time that these structural changes in how the international community responds to Haiti, that still has to change as well.
Thank you so much for answering that question and offering your remarks. Now it'll be sort of more unstructured Q&A. Anyone who would like to jump in can. But we do have a few questions from the chat and from registrations, particularly on sort of the situation in Haiti and why violence in Haiti is so persistent. Of course, we know that violence has impacted Haitians' lives, but more specifically, how does it affect children? Are schools open? What does Haiti look like today for those of you who are in Haiti or have recently visited?
I live in Haiti. I live in Port-au-Prince. I am from Gonaïves, which is a region in the north of the country. My husband is here. I have 4 girls in Haiti, ranging from 15 to 2. So I think I can testify. Haiti is a very complex place, and it is very important that we are very honest about how complex Haiti is. There is barbaric violence in Port-au-Prince, the metropolitan area, but that same metropolitan area, 1 kilometer from a neighborhood that's under attack with the gangs, you would get to a city like Pétionville, and it's business as usual. Schools are open, supermarkets are open, health centers are open. It doesn't mean that they are functioning as any country would be functioning, but it is a country of very high contrast, and we have to be very honest about those high contrasts. It is a country where there is a social apartheid, and that social apartheid and impunity, a lot of impunity, has led us into the chaos that we are today. We also need to mention that the level of barbaric violence that you would be seeing in Port-au-Prince, in certain regions in the Artibonite, where I am from, and now very recently in the Center Department, you would have other cities that are thriving, that are functioning as if nothing bad is not happening in the country. And if you do not go deep into the community to understand that it is years of social injustice, years of treating people as if they are the lowest of the low, years of not investing into development, not investing into youth programs, making sure that people have an opportunity, years of a very tiny elite exploiting and doing neo-colonialism, and the state doing terrorism against its own people, that have also contributed to this situation that we have today. So you have many kids not going to schools. You have gangs attacking, like I was saying in my statement, key institutions, hospitals, and killing indiscriminately. But at the same time, you have deep level of social injustice in this country. And if we fail to face the truth and understand that we have not arrived into this situation just because there is a huge flow of guns and ammunition coming in Haiti, but also because too often when you would have countries like the US coming with programs, they would be implementing those programs with the same mafia. So the same corrupt Haitian elite, the same Haitian elite who values impunity and does everything to keep this country into that chaos, they would be the same leading the program. They would be the same talking to the international community. So it really is illicit economy, and it really is a mafia state. This is what we are seeing in Haiti. A lot of contrast, very difficult to pinpoint and say, this is the one thing that made it happen, because it is a collection of many failures.
I can speak to this a bit as well, Caller, if that's okay. So my I'm surrounded by activists, and my mother is one of the most prominent voices around education in particular. And so I can tell you that within Port-au-Prince, hundreds of schools have actually closed. There's a lot of schools that are closed, both because of their geographic location, just in terms of like being within red zones and gang territories. There's also schools that have closed because all their students have left either the city or the country. And so that's every school. Even the biggest schools that used to have 3,000 students are now working with maybe 1,000 or a couple hundred. So that's definitely very, very concerning. But one thing I would like to call, as far as like how you addressed the history of violence a little bit, I think we have to also realize that Haiti, we've been at this a while, guys. We've been at this a while. And so the dictatorship set a really, really deep foundation for what we are seeing today, in terms of it catalyzing a lot of the economic disparities that we see, in terms of catalyzing sort of the mentality for not the mentality, but the context for these popular neighborhoods to emerge. And so we've done a lot of work in memory. We've done a lot of memory work. And in where we work with youth, we invited youth from one particular popular neighborhood, Cité Soleil. And Cité Soleil is sort of the first, really. And that was created under the dictatorship, where the dictator would have wanted to show that their US partners that they, like, the people love us. And so they would go and they would get people from rural areas and just sort of dump them in the city, make it look like there's a crowd for a speech, and then they would just abandon these people and they couldn't get home. So there was this open valley. They sort of took up space there and they settled there. And that's how Cité Soleil started. And eventually, when Duvalier created his volunteer forces, he literally went into this place of where people were desperate. They were agriculturists, and there was nowhere really for them to practice, and they were displaced, and gave them weapons and were like, go nuts, guys. And so that was one of the ways that Cité Soleil has this heritage. And so when we have youth come from these areas and they come and they hear these stories, they're like, wait, what? What do you mean? And so they understand that this was not meant to be their legacy. And I think one thing we need to absolutely remember is that we're human beings. These are human beings who went through trauma. And what we're seeing right now is the third generation of children of victims of a dictatorship, of a military regime, of so much violence and oppression. I think we have to be realistic about what that does, like developmentally, what that does to a child, to see some of the things that we have seen, as a child, seeing bodies in the street on a daily basis, like what that does to my threshold, like my moral compass. It's like a lot of people today are talking about what we've seen so much. We've seen so many of these repression movements, the Bois Calais movement. We've seen so much violence that everybody is worried about themselves, where they're like, oh my God, I can't believe like how violent my thoughts are sometimes, just in terms of like, when you find yourself in a situation, what are you going to do? And so everybody's thoughts go there. And so I think we have to be really honest about how hard it is to just be in those spaces and to have this level of trauma, and then trying to have conversations about the Constitution. Nobody wants to talk about the Constitution right now. That's not where we're at. And so I think these are really, really important considerations to have. And like Vedina is saying, and I think this is one of the things that I've been observing, is that we are in a position now, just in the terms of the conversations I've been having the last few years, people are shifting how they want to talk about things. We want to call it out. We want to call out these social disparities. We want to have that difficult conversation of like, why do you have this and why don't I? And how do we quell this rage that we have within our society? And I think that's what I was speaking to in my intervention, is that there's a lot of things that we can do right now to sort of quell that rage, to sort of support people through the trauma right now, so that they are at a place mentally and emotionally where we can start to have conversations about peace. We can talk about dialogue, because I think a lot of neighborhoods, we underestimate how hard it is, like for these gang members too. A lot of them are victims as well. And we have to recognize that. We have to be able to have that conversation as well. But if the communities and if our society is not ready, if we are not like prepared mentally and emotionally for what that conversation is going to look like, it's going to topple, So I think that those are the things that we can do right now, though. Those are things that a lot of organizations have started doing, just in terms of like mental health support and building people's like mentalities around these kinds of things. So yeah, I just want to stop.
Thank you so much. No, those are very important insights. And I want to shift gears a little bit in terms of, you'd mentioned the gangs, and then of course, with the reported elections and referendums happening later this year, do the gangs have political support? How do you analyze the expressions of interest in becoming political parties or somehow participating in governing Haiti? Sort of those gang political ties.
Let's not lie to ourselves. No country can have this level of violence. No country can have that many gangs and that many war weapons being smuggled into it without political support. Like, let's not lie to ourselves. This is state terrorism. It is very well organized. There are many political parties who can only get in power through violence. There are many businessmen who can only continue to thrive and make their money through that chaos because it's illicit economy. It is guns trafficking, it is drug trafficking, it's human trafficking. That's how they make money. So no country in the world can be in that situation without politics being extremely involved, designing it and using it for their own benefits. So all of those talks about gangs wanting a seat at the table or gangs turning themselves into political parties, excuse my French, but that's BS. They already are the political parties. They are already behind those political parties. There are neighborhoods in Haiti today that the only way that you can have access to those neighborhoods is talking to a gang leader. So whoever is going to go into election and represent that community is a gang member or he is backed up by the gang member. So let's not lie to ourselves. There's very deep corruption. The politics were using the gangs to get into power, to stay into power, to control the population. When, for example, the fight for accountability, state accountability started, the government very quickly reacted and started fueling that violence in popular neighborhoods so that the population could stop asking for accountability. This is how we ended up in that huge chaos. It was building since the Duvalier years, like Isabel was saying, but very recently, if you look at our recent history, that quantity of violence, that quantity of neighborhoods being occupied by gangs started when the population started to ask where is the Petro-Caribbean money, which in fact was an anti-corruption, anti-impunity movement. So this is corrupt politicians doing it because it is good for them. It's good for their pockets. And a lot of the time, what's even much more and frustrating and gives a lot of rage is that many of them are not even Haitian citizens. Many of them have probably US citizenship or at least US green card. So that's why when we are seeing the sanctions, I was saying earlier that they need to go further than that. I can take one example. Michel Martelly, ex-president, was sanctioned by the US. Why wasn't he prosecuted? If the US was able to have that much proof all to the way that he was sanctioned to OFAC, why not press charges? So this is politics doing all of this. Yes, it went wrong with a couple of gangs who now understand that if they have a direct relationship with the cartels in Latin America, they will become independent and make more money. But it started and it will end with the politics. For at one point, you know, people are going to have to pay for their crimes. People are going to have to go to prison. We're going to have to say such and such was my friend, but he no longer is because he is a criminal. And for as long as there's going to be impunity in Haiti, for as long as the US, Canada, the international community at large will not take the courage of prosecuting their own because of the violence that they are financing and commending in Haiti, this situation will continue. It's not more money, more weapons that's going to solve the situation in Haiti. It is justice. It is people going to prison and paying for their crimes. And that's what the population has been saying. When the population gets in the streets and they do boakale, it's not because we are barbaric. It's because we are tired of them. Yeah. We want them to disappear.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
And if we are listening to what the population is saying, and if we are reading through the lines of their actions, we will understand that the real fight is against impunity.
And going into a little bit more of the current situation, I know we've touched on this already, in terms of the population, can one of you or all of you. Depending on how much time we have, we're sort of running out of time, and we have a few more questions to get to. Can you be more specific in terms of the sudden or the impact of the sudden suspension of U.S. foreign assistance? How did the cutoff immediately affect the various organizations in Haiti? And is there some thoughts into a way that this could sort of redesign future aid to Haiti? What would the criteria for that aid be in the future?
I can start on that question. And so, as I said in a previous response, I think we're still, time will tell to see what the impact of the aid cuts will be. That being said, a huge portion of Haiti's health sector has been funded by U.S. assistance. There's a lot of ways that the U.S. has had its kind of thumb on the scale for different ways that Haiti's government had operated, for example. But I really do, when we're talking about what U.S. assistance or support could look like in the future, I really do want to keep highlighting what Valina and Isabel have continued to say, that so much of the challenges and so much of the violence is because of that lack of accountability, and is because the people who have been supported, including the ones that have been supported by the U.S., have been fueling a lot of this violence. And so, when we're talking about what the future of aid could look like, it has to keep that into account, because if we're continuing to fuel much of the problems, having development programs will not fix that. So I'll stop there.
Thanks, Queen. So I think, yeah, so like Queen said, it's difficult to tell right now, because I think a lot of the funding that was made available right now, we're going to civil society organizations. But I will say this one thing is that a lot of USAID programming for civil society, a lot of it is capacity building, which quite frankly builds no one's capacity. It actually just teaches people to comply with aid funding. And so it's like cloning these local organizations and their local dynamics and their local way of operating, and just cloning them into whatever the USAID, for instance, reporting mechanisms look like. And it gets really, really frustrating, honestly, and it sort of takes people's whole purpose away. But I do think that if we're talking about reimagining aid, I think there has to be a very real acknowledgement, first of all, of like how poorly it's been done in the past. And again, I think it has to reshape the parameters. Like, every country is not the same. The standard of living is not the same for everybody. Housing design is not the same. The expectation or the ask for communities about how their houses get built, that's different around the world. What a poverty line means is different around the world. And so it has to be context specific and context appropriate. And again, start with what is immediately available to reinforce what is available. So, I think the most classic example of such a thing is humanitarian relief, and just sort of this inpouring of all kinds of foreign food. We already know how that worked out for us. We are capable, Haiti is capable of producing its own food. We are capable of feeding our entire population and have some left over. That is an actual capacity that we have. And these are things that have to be reinforced. And I know that USAID has had a variety of programs around these kinds of things. I've worked with these programs or alongside these programs, and I can tell you, yeah, that's not what it is. That's not what we need. And I think there needs to be a shift of power where the aid industrial complex learns from communities, learn from the communities that you're trying to support, learn from them, ask them what they do, ask them what works for them, and go with that. And I think also be very realistic about how that money gets spent sometimes, especially when it interacts with public entities, because what Velina is saying about the level of corruption, super true. But I want to be really honest with you, having seen these things firsthand, it's not super sophisticated. Like, it's not very sophisticated. I just mean it's not that complicated of a process to, have somebody submit a letter that asks for X amount of money to go to such project, and for a percentage of that to go to buy, so-and-so his private car, a B6 bulletproof Land Cruiser, for instance, and I've had this conversation with diplomats, and I've said, I hate to tell you this, but I don't know if you know this, but it's actually absurdly easy for me to spend $1 million and never leave my house and give you all of the justification that you need. I will give you the 3 receipts, the 3 pro formas, I'll give you everything you want, and I've never left my house. And honestly, he smiled at me and said, as long as the paperwork adds up. So we need to be realistic about what accountability looks like to us. Not accountability to the funder, but accountability to us, to Haitians, to the communities that you are helping. That's really important. And that conversation needs to take place. And those policies need to be done very, very differently.
Thank you. And I think in terms of just timing, there are, I think, 3 questions left, and maybe we can answer them in a minute or less to make the 11 a.m. But shifting a little bit in terms of migration and the recent announcements from the Dominican Republic, if someone can share their views on what they predict will be the effects of the tough migration and border security policies that were announced from the DR to Haiti this past week.
Migration, that's a tough topic. It is very easy to start pulling our heads, thinking about all of the people, all of the Haitians that are attacked all over the world, that are being sent back into the hell situation that we have in Haiti. But what one need to always remember is that there is a reason why people fear their home. And for as long as we only look at the numbers and say 20,000 people are going to be kicked out, 200,000 people are going to be kicked out, and we do not go and ask ourselves, why did they flee in the first place? Let us fix the reasons why they are fleeing. Why is it that in 2025, we are still having conversations about aid instead of cooperation? Why is it that in 2005, we are still having conversations about countries kicking out people who are fleeing violence instead of saying, how is it that we can stop terrorism, that we can stop violence? So me, myself personally, and the organizations that I represent today, this is the conversation we want to have. No matter how many people are going to be sent back into Haiti, they will go right back, because this is hell. This country where we are living is hell, and nobody wants to live in hell. And for so long that the international community, the US, is not going to take serious actions, concrete steps at stopping armed trafficking, ammunition trafficking, drug trafficking, we will always have that topic of immigration, migration, people going all over the place. The real conversation is, we in Haiti do not manufacture guns and ammunitions. Why are they coming here? To turn our lives into hell so that we have to flee home.
Yeah, I find that migration policies are another example of the international community sometimes adding to the problem. So again, we talked about that there's over 1 million people displaced, but also the Port-au-Prince airport is closed. And so the fact that deportations are happening while there's this massive displacement and while people are not able to get out is really telling. And additionally, you mentioned the Dominican Republic, that they've been trying to strengthen their border. The US has talked about that as well as a migration response. If strengthening the border means stopping arms going to Haiti, then great. But if their version of strengthening the border just means trying to contain the issue, that in itself is not a solution. Trying to just keep it so that Haitians are not able to leave does nothing to actually solve the problem.
Thank you. And just briefly, maybe in hopefully 30 seconds, what do you see as the role, speaking about those who don't live in Haiti, of the Haitian diaspora, particularly in the US? How can they be most useful in this current context?
There's a lot. I don't know that 30 seconds is going to work. I'll do my best. But I think the Haitian diaspora also, to be honest, they have to also act in humility, and they have to ask Haitians. Ask us, do not come with the solutions prepackaged as well. Ask communities, what is it that you need, or what is it that you are doing, and how can we support what you are already doing? The conversation just has to shift. The vocabulary has to shift. So the Haitian diaspora has been really, really influential in terms of like the policy spaces in the US, I believe. And I think there's a lot that they can do in terms of like all of the policies that we've talked about today, as far as like, weapons trafficking and holding people to account and actually pressing charges against people that are sanctioned. Like what why the sanctions? So I think definitely there's a lot there, but I think also there's, you know, when I was talking about digitization, I think really like the opportunity to have a digital voting platform would allow the diaspora to participate in a more meaningful way. And there's a lot, so I want to be mindful of time though. We can follow up.
Yeah, unfortunately, we've run out of time. I mean, this conversation can last multiple hours. I mean, even I'm sure that you all spend a lot of time on this. Myself in my work at the CRS also spend a lot of time thinking through related to things on Haiti. However, if the audience is interested in learning more, feel free to check out the resources that we have posted on this event page. The panelist bios will be there, so you can see what they're up to and where they work, so you could, you know, connect with them on that, or even myself at the CRS. We will share the link in the chat, which I think Jeff just sent. I want to extend my heartfelt thanks to the Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission for organizing this vital briefing on Haiti's human rights and security situation that is constantly changing every single day, and to our distinguished panelists for their insightful contributions, and the online audience for your active participation and a myriad of questions, which I wish we had time to get to, but we have run out of time. But thank you again for joining us, and I look forward to future discussions on Haiti. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.